What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the NFL Brekkie Show. Yeah, you don't need to check your calendars. We are live. This is a Tuesday morning Australia execution, Monday, mid Arvo, late Arvo here in the United States. We got week 17 finale coming up. Lions, Niners. Laz, this is our traditional throwback jersey kind of time for this show, but normally we have been doing this on Wednesday morning. We do apologize if somebody comes in late and wanted to contribute, chime in on our typical day, but it's hard enough crossing an international date line and sorting this out. We just couldn't do this if we were in a different year. If you were in 2025 and I was still in 2024, like our initial schedule would have said, it might have just melted on my computer.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're two kids that were brought up with the complex computations and who knows what hellscape was going to wait us when the Y2K bug hit. We obviously got through that decently. Yeah. How we've all done in the 20-odd years since then, that's up for debate, but not on this show. It's a football show. But yeah, we're weathered for this. We're ready for this. Time differences. I mean, you were brought up very familiar with military time. Yes. I was too, with members of my family. So, we're well equipped for handling these time zones. It's not often, those date lines and, those types of calculations that catch us off guard. It's probably you and me as our lives have changed. We, do have to, when we're doing home office stuff, perhaps be wary of some other noise that may be occurring in the house. As the next generation of our families have entered the fray, and next generation of football fans have entered the fray. But it's a nice time to reflect. And today it's our New Year's special. And we're going to try and avoid using the RESOL word.
Oh, we didn't even need to mention it. Why'd you even spell it?
We're going to avoid saying it. For us, it's about lessons. It's about what we're trying to look around the league and what we've taken from the past 12 months or longer, because we know for some of the people tuning in today, and we've got some hot takes already submitted, the pain goes longer than the past 12 months, your football pain in particular. What we're trying to apply forward to 2025. How do we build stronger and smarter for this new year, especially for those of us that have seen their teams either fail and fall out of contention already, no longer part of the playoff picture, or teams perhaps that we know were our fan bases that we know perhaps we're limping towards the playoffs. And I don't want to point to any teams that might rhyme with Bexons or Feelers that may be feeling that type of way right now. So I guess, Phil, let's open this thing up. It is the People Show. We want your comments. We see the viewers are already streaming in for a little in Australian terms, pre-New Year's festivities. It's about 11:30 my time in Sydney, same in Melbourne. What you've got going on the rest of the day, I'm sure the noise will pick up for those around the country. So as we get ready to sink into that, Phil, what's a lesson, whether it's team specific or league wide, what's something that you're taking away from what we've learned and you'd like to apply to teams or the league or just football cognoscenti in general as they look towards 2025 and beyond?
Well, Laz, we can go a number of ways with this. There are, as you said, broader lessons to be learned, and then specific lessons for teams that will have something for which to play at least 2 weeks from now, or at least 3 weeks from now. And that's where I'll start. The team that's clinched already the first round bye in the AFC. They're going for a three-peat. We've never seen a two-time Super Bowl champion get back to a Super Bowl. And man, despite the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs have only lost one game this season, there is a queue of doubters because it's been largely underwhelming. I mean, I think winning one possession games with repetition is a sign of good coaching, attention to detail, clock management, and having an edge there over the vast majority of your opponents. Some see it as weakness. The Chiefs are not without weakness. We've talked previously on the show, our holiday shopping episode. I said, get Patrick Mahomes a full-length mirror because that's the only way he knows his backside is going to be safe. Whoever is his left tackle has shown all of saloon door resistance to any semi-competent pass rusher. But the concerns schematically for the Chiefs go beyond that. And I think in the new year, as we go to 2025, week 18, not much at stake for them. And I'll say it here. I think when the Chiefs brass closes the doors, they won't say this to the players, but when the coaches and GMs and everybody else is talking to each other, they play the Broncos this weekend. And if the Broncos were to win that game, the Broncos secure the final spot in the AFC playoffs over Joe Burrow and the Bengals, who just beat the Broncos in an exciting game in Week 17 in overtime. If I'm Andy Reid and Brett Veach and all of those guys, Steve Spagnuolo, when that door shuts, I look at each other and say, hey, would you rather the Bengals be the last team in the playoffs, potentially, or the Broncos? It's an easy answer. You'd rather the Broncos. You don't mess around and hope that Miami can, perhaps without Tua, find a way to beat the Jets and get in and say, my path to the Super Bowl writ large is easier if the Broncos win. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of Patrick Mahomes. But Chiefs 2025, I'm back on track. Their new year, new me. They need to make deeper connections, Laz. And don't we all? Quarterback and wide receiver. This team has not had a deep threat since Tyreek Hill was traded away. They've brought in people who had drop problems. Justin Watson this year was supposed to resolve those. His drops are league average, but it seems like it's the high stake plays where those drops happen. Patrick Mahomes, since Tyreek Hill was traded on passes of 20-plus air yards, he's 28th in the NFL in QBR. This year, he's last in CPOE on those throws. And it's just not good. And if they get in a position where they need to pick up chunk plays or really just take the top off of the defense and a savvy defense that might be willing to crowd them inside of 15 yards and not really respect the deep ball, not a lot can be done. So I say deeper connections in Kansas City if they want to make the deepest run for any aspiring three-peat team.
I think, and I'm going to move on to mine pretty quickly, but I think when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, there might be some hints of that already. And maybe it's not the deeper connections yet, but they certainly feel like there's a little bit more breathing going on with that Kansas City Chiefs with the return of Hollywood Brown. Just in that it's a very small sample size. But what we saw with Brown's return, the Chiefs kicking things off really early in Week 17 and getting things underway. The blending between Week 16, 17, and 18 is all over the place right now with, what was it? What do we have? 5 days of football across 6 days of the week?
Yes. Of Week 17 lasted 6 days, and there were competitive games on 5 of them, including today.
I thought that was a promising sign because that was the most consistently in rhythm. I thought there were some signs against the Texans. And then I think that built going forward. Just with Brown coming in there, he's a more complete. He's a speedy option, and people are going to easily lump him with someone like Xavier Worthy in the same bucket. But he's a more complete receiver. He's a more established receiver. There's more to his game at this point of their careers than Worthy. I think he opens some things up, and it just kind of really, not trying to paint by numbers, but if you think about what they're rolling out there with their 4 key receivers at this point. You've got Kelsey and Nuke Hopkins who can play that old man basketball, old man pickup style. We'll give you option routes. We'll give you pivot routes. We'll let you, that's it. You can't catch the ball when it's back here. You can't block me from all the way back here. But we're going to let you work free into zones. And to help create that space for you, now we've got 2 speedy elements to stretch the field either horizontally or stretch it vertically and really make it's not the old Chiefs, but that old concept of the Chiefs, which was we're going to make you defend every single blade of grass on the field. A little bit more of that felt like it was there with Brown back. Okay, my first one, and this is a little more, not to anyone who's watched the show and has joined us for the past several years will know. Mine are probably going to be a little more airy-fairy, a little more whimsically off in the conceptual space about the lessons that we're taking. So for me, in 2025, thou shalt invest in running back. 9 of the top 10 rushers in the NFL, the 2024 season, come with significant investments either through free agency or the draft. The outlier there is Kyren Williams. But whether we're talking about we talk about the big 2 a lot of the time. Really, it's the big 3 free agent acquisitions. Saquon Barkley, he of 2,000 rushing yards. Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs, whether it's those type of players, or whether we're looking at with running back, when you draft high, you also pay high. That's the unique thing. It's not like, we don't spend big in free agency. We use draft capital on that. That's a conversation you have at different positions like offensive tackle, where you do have that chasmic divide. When you are picking someone in the top 20 or even the top 32 in the draft at running back, they're immediately thrust basically into the top 10 paid spot at the position. That tends to be how it works out. So someone like a Jahmyr Gibbs comes to mind who sits up there. But if you go through that top 10 rushing list, Kyren Williams is the only one picked in the 5th round from the LA Rams, is the only one who is not either that significant early draft capital or solid spending. In someone like Aaron Jones, $7 million a year at the running back spot. Yes, it's 1 year, but that is a serious amount of money for running backs and was looked at, certainly not as bad value, but was looked at as, oh no, they didn't get him on some, $2 million, $2.5 million veteran running back. Nobody wants you anymore. So whilst the running back market at the top hasn't shifted a lot since the Adrian Peterson days, really, I think the evidence is there that investing in your running game, investing in your running back talent has provided fruit. And even with someone like Williams, whilst he is on that cheap rookie contract being a day 3 pick, there was investment made in that running game with the payment made to those big bodies up front in the interior of the offensive line for the LA Rams, who, yes, there were injuries there, but you think about where Steve Avila was picked, and you think about some of the free agent cash they've spent at those spots to beef up there. So, yes, you can see it in the show caption. I'm going to repeat it here. The cool kids are doing it. All right. All the cool kids are paying their running backs and investing in their running game again. It's sexy again. So that's my big one as you're looking out across 2025 and looking to add some more substance to your team or looking to create some more offensive consistency. Look at what's happened at the best rushing attacks in the NFL and look at the money or draft capital or both that's followed.
So, Laz, should your Cowboys then draft Ashton Jeanty in the first round?
The Cowboys are an interesting one because Rico Dowdle is about as high as it gets without making that big investment. He's soared towards 1,000 yards over the past 2 months in particular, since, the Ezekiel Elliott revival didn't quite take hold. For the Cowboys, I would be looking, Dowdle's fine. I think there's enough problems with that roster that someone like Jeanty at pick 13 to 15 range. Look, it's certainly defensible. I just don't trust that the Cowboys are that team to maximize him. I don't trust that the Cowboys right now, who knows who their coaching staff is. We know that I've made it clear that I think the change is needed there, but there's every chance that Mike McCarthy comes back. Is Mike McCarthy and shall we say, developing at best offensive line the best place to take advantage of someone like Ashton Jeanty? No. This isn't the 2016 Cowboys with the Great Wall of Dallas times 2. They thought Tony Romo at the time, but, a veteran quarterback. This isn't the Detroit Lions, who had an established high-end veteran, invested, high-performing offensive line with a hell of a play caller in place who went out and got someone like Jimmy Gibbs to partner with someone like David Montgomery. So, look, is it, from a talent standpoint, is it defensible? Totally. Are they the right team to do it? Absolutely not.
Well, and you mentioned Aaron Jones. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. So Minnesota has a decision to make with Sam Darnold. And I think every game they win from here on out, including Week 18 against the Lions, it's going to add about $5 million to Darnold's per annum value if he were to stay in Minnesota. If they're a first-round playoff exit, I think Minnesota makes a change at quarterback, perhaps brings back Aaron Jones. But if they make it to an NFC Championship game or a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl, you can't move on from the quarterback. And then Aaron Jones, I think, becomes a cap casualty. He goes somewhere at age 31, but shows he's got some tread left on the tires. Najee Harris, I believe, is an unrestricted free agent. So lessons learned last offseason, Saquon, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, chief among them, not exclusively, but chief among them, show your point. In a too high safety era, there is an inability to run the ball 4.5 to 5.5 yards per carry makes a world of a difference from somebody who's sub 4. Laz, I'm going to go another team-specific one and a new year, new me for the Ravens. And for me, it's a matter of being a little too gullible, perhaps, not believing everything you see or everything you read. In fact, there have been some misreads by this defense. And we've talked, probably since week 2 or 3. This is a team with a high ceiling and a low floor. Remember, they started 0-2, lost by a half a shoe size in Kansas City, and then inexplicably lost to the Raiders, who at the time it didn't make sense, and the week since it's made less sense. But there's a common thread to all of these losses. The Ravens on the season ranked 25th in QBR allowed on play action passes. In their 5 losses, I'll go quickly through the numbers of these quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes went 6 for 6 on play action passes. Gardner Minshew, in that week 2 loss to the Raiders, went 9 for 9. Another inexplicable Ravens loss, they lost to the Browns. Now, Jameis Winston was a modest 7 for 12 on play action, but for 124 yards. He averaged more than 10 yards per attempt on play action passes. Russell Wilson went 8 for 11 in the first meeting against the Steelers. The Ravens lost, and Jalen Hurts went 6 for 6. So in total, Ravens 5 losses, 36 for 44 passing, where opposing quarterbacks for 355 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks on play action. If the Ravens, new year, new me, don't immediately figure out how to sort out play action passes against the likes of Buffalo and Kansas City, and I can stop the list there, it's going to be another season where, despite a great regular season from Lamar Jackson, 1 or 1A in the MVP debate, it's not going to be a season that ends in an AFC championship and a trip to a Super Bowl. It's going to be cut short shy of that. So high stakes in the Charm City, but I think that is what will decide the Ravens' fate. The ability to not believe everything you see or read and defend play action a little better than they have.
And this is a defense that's risen throughout the season, and it's certainly Starks has been added to it. They performed better over the last month or so. You just, like you said, you look who you're coming up against, and look at the brains trust that you're coming up against offensively, not just at the quarterback position, but the surrounding, schematic coordination that's going on there, and the answers or the strategies they may have to take advantage of this weakness. Because if you know it, and I know it because you told me, I know it, you know it, you told me, so now I know it.
And you know that I know that you know.
And they probably know it too.
And they know.
Yeah, you got it. Okay. For mine, in 2025, don't delay for tomorrow what can be done today with your old quarterbacks.
Oh, I thought that was a fortune cookie for a second.
The proof. Now you're giving me dinner ideas for tonight. The proof is in the pudding, all right? We know your QB is washed. Phil, you know this in particular, being a Denver Broncos fan.
Yeah. A third of Denver's salary this year is going to Russell Wilson dead cap money. Yep.
And yet, you heard it. The man said it. He knows football. He knows
$71 million US dollars.
There's the number. And yet, Phil, how are you feeling about those Denver Broncos in 2024?
Hell of a lot better than I thought I would be at the end of 2024.
Bang. Exactly. Rip the Band-Aid off. The proof is in the pudding. Look at the Broncos. In a different version, look at the Vikings, who took the step to say, no, we're going to go away from this veteran quarterback who's been good but not great, and great for 4-week stretches here, but not great overall, and has a ceiling and is loved within our team and in our locker room. And we're going to try and move forward and get younger and get more talented. Were they rewarded with the cleanest path to it? No, because JJ McCarthy got injured, but they went out and they did the right thing. They get someone like Sam Darnold, who could have been a holdover, and had started his rehabilitation process from an on-field standpoint. He had started that process, and then they do go get from all reports, a very high caliber, high character, football leadership prospect in JJ McCarthy, and bringing him in. And now, despite that scary step into the abyss and the unknown, they're rewarded with an amazing position of strength. This team is fighting for the number 1 seed. Mm-hmm. Sam Darnold is being chaired into the locker room after massive victories. We talked about how their final 4 weeks was like a video game because it stepped up in challenge each week. It went from the Bears to the Seahawks to the Packers, and then the Lions was going to be that hopefully week 18 that we have been delivered. But they've got that happening at quarterback. They've got JJ McCarthy getting healthy after meniscus surgery took away his rookie season. They have the option now to, go forward with the cheap quarterback route and, okay, we're giving this thing over to JJ McCarthy if he's healthy next year. They have the option of paying Sam Darnold, who I would think would want to stay in Minnesota, even if it's not the absolute maximum amount of money he could get. Minnesota can pay. They have the cap flexibility for it, but it's not you would imagine it might be a team out that might push his number towards $50 million a year or beyond, whereas you could see why with the surrounding talent and Kevin O'Connell, why he'd want to stay in Minnesota, where he's had unprecedented success and gone from punchline to, if comeback player of the year was allowed to be for form still and not more about health and adversity that keeps you off the field, Sam Darnold would be right up there with a chance. Yeah. Or they have the option of tagging him for a year and either paying him $42 million to play really good football again in a great scenario, or tagging him and trading him. So they have been rewarded for taking that step and saying, no, we're going to get younger, we're going to get creative, and we're going to look at this and step out from mediocrity. The Denver Broncos have as well. So teams like the Cleveland Browns, the New Orleans Saints, and the Jets, who have less of that with Aaron Rodgers' contract status, it's a bit different than the Browns and the Saints with regards to Deshaun Watson and Derek Carr. But have the belief and have the courage to do today and not delay until further down the road. As make the move. The answer at quarterback is not in your building. Delaying and delaying and delaying by asking the question, oh, what are we really going to do that's better than that? It's the wrong question to ask. The Minnesota Vikings were positioned to maybe take the 5th quarterback off the board, maybe the 4th at best, probably not the top 3. The same questions were being asked. Oh, who are you going to really do better than Kirk Cousins at that spot with a rookie quarterback? Well, look at what the solutions have presented themselves. The karmic draft gods will reward those who show boldness, show courage, and show the willingness to step out into the unknown. So that is my lesson for 2025. Really went on a wild narrative run there.
Well, I'm curious where the Giants now do with that information and foresight, because Colts Giants on the weekend, week 17. Colts needed to win to keep playoff hopes alive. Giants had the inside track, 57% chance at the 1 seed, the number 1 overall pick, I should say, farthest thing from the 1 seed, number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. They both screwed it up because the Giants won, and credit to Drew Lock, man, looked like an MVP against that pretty porous and abysmal Colts defense. Malik Neighbors will be in the conversation with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in the not too distant future about who is the best receiver in the NFL. But now the Giants have won themselves into 4th pick overall in the draft. Now, whether you think Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward are franchise quarterbacks, I don't think either one's going to be available to the Giants at 4. So they're the ones for me that come under the spotlight. What do they do in that position? That's a conversation that you and I are going to have in the draft, but there are going to be teams outside of Jets, Browns, Saints that emerge with this need. But to your point, this year's a great case study for that case of ripping off the Band-Aid. There was something in the early 2000s, I guess mid 2000s, 2009, 2010, the Andy Dalton syndrome. Yeah. When he was on the Bengals, he was a fine quarterback. There was nothing wrong with Andy Dalton, but his ceiling, 9, 10, maybe 11 wins for the Bengals, not transcendent, not able to elevate and really get a team, let alone a Super Bowl, get a team to true contention. And just year after year, the Bengals stuck with him because he was too hard to replace. Marvin Lewis and that team just said, man, you don't want to go backwards and take a big swing and then potentially regress. Well, teams that have been willing to show that risk, at least this year, have been rewarded, at least in the near term. Rookie success and year 2 success is a big step up once the teams have a year worth of tape. Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Drake May are going to face challenges that are above and beyond what they face this year. Defense will be more sophisticated against them. But the immediate aftermath of ripping off the Band-Aid, being willing to move on, has shown dividends in 2024. Good lesson for 2025. Laz, we are going to go to the hot take hotline. We have about 20 minutes until kick of Monday Night Football, Niners and Lions. We don't want to take away your time if anybody is heading there. And along the same vein, Kieran says, quote, drafting a quarterback doesn't guarantee anything. Make the roster, then input the rookie QB. I assume, Laz, he's somebody who barracks for the Titans, you said. I mean, the Vikings may be in this scenario as well.
Yeah, this is Kieran's provided some great questions over the years. Regular watch, regular listener, regular contributor. And yeah, with that Titans footing, drafting a QB doesn't guarantee anything. Make the roster, then input the quarterback. And I guess he's looking at this from the perspective of, the Titans got caught in that spot where it was a Will Levis draft pick, but the surrounding circumstances weren't there for him to get an immediate evaluation, certainly not a clean evaluation. This year was supposed to be more of that with the likes of Calvin Ridley coming in, certainly some reinvestment in the offensive line, despite Derrick Henry leaving. They did go and pay Tony Pollard, who's been quite decent, gone over his yardage expectation for the season. And there's been moments, but there is such a lack of talent there. We know DeAndre Hopkins was shipped out. Chig Okonkwo hasn't come on as, a game-breaking tight end talent by any means. It is very lonely. You're still getting flashes from Westbrook Akine, which feels like it's been flashes the entire time.
If you're wagering on anytime touchdowns, sure.
Yeah, exactly. But building something, I can see where he's coming from. And I agree, because all of this is about evaluation. When it comes to quarterback position, you need to have a clean evaluation so you know whether it is time to move on, whether you are ever going to get over the hump, which is the phrase when we were talking about what we're just talking about with people like Andy Dalton and the late great Chris Wessling, who had the Dalton scale, and the names that we mentioned there.
Andy Dalton catching a lot of strays here. For
Ryan Tannehill was another one of these names that flirted around there. You need a clean evaluation. It's so hard to get that for a team like the Vikings. I mean, that's what building. Yes, there's been some holes in that offensive line. They had some injuries. There's certainly talent there. But the coaching scenario, the skill position talent around Sam Darnold has allowed us to get a clean evaluation of what his potential is and whether they go forward with Darnold in the long term, the medium term, or this is it for him in Minnesota. It's also going to provide an evaluation likely for JJ McCarthy at some point as well. So I think Kieran's right. I think putting rookie quarterbacks in position. Bryce Young put into very turbulent circumstances with a bad surrounding cast and having one of the most disappointing rookie quarterback seasons in general, let alone for a first overall pick. And now look, it's not like he's out there playing with the 2006 Colts setup or I keep thinking of Peyton Manning offenses or the Broncos setup. Was it 2014 Broncos that you guys had? Which year was it where you had 4 1,000-yard receivers over there?
2013, I want to say. 2012 was the year of the loss to the Ravens. That was the big heartbreak.
So
Julius Thomas, Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas.
Wes Welker as well?
He was on there, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like that's what all of a sudden Bryce Young is working with in Carolina, but a better coaching staff, a better offensive game plan, reignited belief, and a better measured approach to how you're going to bring someone along. So, I think you're absolutely on the money now. Now, Phil, this second one comes from an interesting handle. I haven't seen this before. Did you want to present this one?
Yeah, this is one that I submitted. From my MySpace account. You don't check that social medium, so I just had a look and found one that was interesting. So Saquon Barkley became the 9th 2,000-yard rusher in NFL history on the weekend, a lopsided win over your Cowboys loss. Saquon sits exactly 100 yards away from tying Eric Dickerson's storied NFL record. Stood for 40 years, 2105, one of the great numbers in the NFL. Saquon can get it. And if he pursues it in earnest against the Giants, he probably will. Mm-hmm. But 31 carries against the Cowboys. Giants on the weekend in a dead rubber. And then probably hosting the Packers in the wild card round, another high ceiling team with a great quarterback and an opportunistic defense. Not an easy out for a 2 seed. This from, I don't know how to pronounce that. It's from Phil. Saquon should sit versus the Giants, not chase the NFL rushing record, period. I agree with it. What do you think?
I agree. And maybe people are going to think I'm talking nonsense here and no one will remember it, but he didn't do it in 16 games.
Well, hold on. He has 35 fewer carries than Dickerson did. So for me, if we're really trying to parse it, this isn't a yard per carry is more impressive than...
It's not a yards per carry award. Yes, Dickerson, and that's actually a bonus for Dickerson for me because think about the workload that he was taking on.
That he had more opportunity in games, not in carries. So, but again, if you want to go to carries, or O.J. Simpson had 2,014 games and 10 fewer carries than Barkley has at this point.
So, and I think
whatever happened to him, by the way.
Hey Phil, we got through 2024, not getting fired. Let's try and keep it going into 2025.
He did American Gladiators, right? And then some
we had Australian Gladiators down here. We had different guys down. We had Taipan and stuff down here. It's a different cast. Shout out the original Gladiators. I think the amount of carries that Dickerson had in those games doesn't take it away from me because he was asked to do a demanding workload in a shorter amount of games as well. Think about the workload and still being effective. Those carries came for a reason because of how central he was to that team. But for me, it is about, I think it does come with an asterisk if you break it in one more game. I don't think, for me it does. I don't think it takes him out of the record books, and most people will not look at that. And as time goes by, that idea of 17 games or 16 games will fade. It will. But me personally, I'll always remember that it did take an extra game. And and where he at that 16 game mark. But then on a bigger picture for Eagles fans, I don't think I'd want to see him out there because this team has a shot at the Super Bowl. And if Saquon Barkley goes down, chasing that record in week 18 in the 17th game of the regular season, if he goes down and misses the playoffs, they're not winning the Super Bowl. They can't win the Super Bowl without him. I'm not trying to denigrate the rest of that roster, a very, very talented roster, from the offensive line to the reinvestments in the defensive backfield to the talent up front. Onto the defensive side, I think Jalen Carter is one of the most dominant players in the league. The wide receivers, AJ Brown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't believe that team is currently constructed can win the Super Bowl without Saquon Barkley. So
I agree.
Why would I waste his carries, his explosion, his physicality, his talent, and what is left in the tank after a long season? And he's in phenomenal shape and an exceptional professional. But on a meaningless game, in terms of our campaign, not for him. Obviously, there's meaning there with that record, but for the campaign, I wouldn't want to see him out there. I'd want to see him in whatever week of the playoffs that they're kicking their thing off. Well, in week one of the playoffs.
Odds, I know we have an odd segment coming up. I think it's germane to the conversation to point out that odds makers only have the Eagles as a 3-point favorite, which leads me to believe they don't think the starters are going to see the field for very long. Saquon Barkley has a lingering injury history, ACL tear on his CV, a number of ankle injuries, and not because of a lack of fitness, because of the amount of punishment he took in his first years in New York on a bunch of teams that were never going to contend. And Mike Tannenbaum put it most succinctly on the Blitz on the weekend: rings over records. Yeah. That's the goal, really, for any professional, especially somebody in their athletic prime, the 53 men who will put on pads and a helmet every Sunday. Their ultimate goal is a ring. And Saquon Barkley's health isn't binary. It's not, well, I didn't, pull a hamstring or a groin or whatever, therefore I'm healthy. No. You're going to need him for 30 carries, perhaps, against the Packers or against the Rams or against the Lions. And you're going to need him to be at full fitness. So even if he goes and it takes 21 carries, he gets 102 yards, high five off the field, they stop play, a salute, all the moment and everything. That's 21 times the Giants, who don't want to be on the wrong end of history, are just hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. And as he's sitting in the ice bath after the game, if he's not as healthy as he would have been had he said, you know what, sweatpants and I'll be a coach on the sideline, then it wasn't worth doing, because you need him at his absolute best in 2 weeks' time. And that's what it comes down to for me. So I agree with Phil 182, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Look, there's no statement that needs to be made. That we know where the Giants are. We've seen all the memes. We've seen that clip from the Hard Knocks off-season special. There's no statement that needs to be made here. Everybody knows that this has been a victory. So that's all that really needs to be done here. Moving forward, go look at someone, like you said, Mike Tannenbaum said it, records.
Rings not records. Rings over records.
Not records. There's a world where Dan Marino is the greatest quarterback we ever saw.
Yeah.
But, and he held records for a long time, and Dan Marino would trade just about every single one of them, if not all of them, probably all of them, for the ring that got.
Yeah. Why was John Elway's career considered a perfect story arc? Not because he broke some record in his final 2 seasons, because he went out winning back-to-back Super Bowls with a little bit left in the tank.
Correct. All right, and our last one, Phil, for Hot Take Hotline for the day. This one is from Brad Bolt, friend of the show. Try to sign T. Higgins in the offseason. That's what he wants from his Panthers. And then draft nothing but defense so the team can improve and be more competitive.
Yeah, I mean, they need more weapons. There's been a bit of rapport developed between Adam Thielen and Bryce Young. They seem to have a decent running back in Chuba Hubbard. There's somebody who not a lot of draft capital was spent on. He was a 4th-round pick. Unfortunately, ends the season on IR, but Jonathan Brooks in the mix. Number of holes in Carolina, but starting to emerge from being on the wrong end of that Caleb Williams deal. Now's the time. They have a little bit of cash. They got a little bit of draft capital starting to get to that point. So, yeah, this is where the rebuild begins in earnest for Carolina. I think the worst days are behind them, and they've shown some promise this year. T. Higgins is as fine a target as anybody. I think Cincinnati's going to try like hell to keep him. But Cincinnati, I think, has the adults in the room in Cincinnati are going to say, we need help on the offensive line. We've been swinging and missing for 4 years there, 5 years there, and we need help in the secondary on the defensive side of the ball, Jesse Bates' departure just was never resolved. And despite Joe Burrow, his best efforts and putting up MVP caliber numbers, there's a reason the Bengals far from control their own destiny, because they've lost so many games in which they've scored 33 or 35 points and just haven't been able to stop, anybody. So I think T. Higgins is on his way out. And if he is, then yeah, the highest bidder is Carolina. It makes sense for him to go there.
I think while Joe Burrow and I think the surrounding offense would love to have T. Higgins back, we've seen the general operating mode of the Bengals and has not often been to be hyper aggressive in their spending. They've had moments. They obviously built that the best version of that Lou Anarumo defense largely through free agency.
Joe Burrow's putting the pressure on him.
Yeah, Joe Burrow certainly is. And we might touch on how Joe Burrow might be putting pressure on everybody, whether their playoff hopes are alive or not, with the Cincinnati Bengals. When we, Phil, take a step into an area that you have truly dominated, your zone, for our final edition of the regular season.
Laws, it's time for Popular Demand, brought to you by Tab. And an asterisk, I haven't dominated. I mean, up 4.7 units in 17 weeks is okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right.
Yeah.
The margin, though, I'm proud of my 7 under par that we've shot here. Or I guess, we'll say 4 under par here. Laz, you've been Van de Velvian over there. Van de Vel. Yeah.
You give me the John Van de Vel shit. Thank you. Yeah.
Minus 8.88 units. I don't know how many losses on the trot. It was looking okay for a minute there. But we're in a bit of a pickle here with Popular Demand just because of timing of things, that there aren't a lot of player props available. The week 18 doesn't kick off for 5 days. Listen, I'll tell you straight up. I like Detroit first half. I got them minus 2.5 in the game coming up in a matter of minutes on ESPN. I got them at $1.87 minus 2.5. It's now 3.5. I like it a lot less at that number for a first half number. I'd stay away if you can't get it at 2.5. But George Kittle long reception over 26.5, $2.20. I think there's great value there. He's hit that number in 8 of 9 games. Only exception was a snowstorm in Buffalo. So that's that game. If you want to get those in under the wire from our friends at Tab. But Lars, we just said clean slate, Popular Demand, anything you like from week 18, whatever's out there. I'm talking, so I'll start.
Yep.
We mentioned the Carolina Panthers. This one's for you, Brad. The Panthers, you think, underwhelming offense, all these problems. It's been way better this year. And in fact, weird stat, in their road games, and they're on the road this weekend in Atlanta, a game that Atlanta needs at least. They need that, and they need the Bucs to lose to the Saints. It's a tall order, but Atlanta needs to win. In that game, it's in Atlanta. The Panthers on the season, on the road, overs are 7-0 in the first half. First half overs, Panthers road game 7-0. Only team that is 2-0 home or away in any first half total. So I'm just going to keep that train rolling. Over 23.5 is $1.85. Panthers, Falcons put up points. Falcons will probably be up 14-10 or 17-7 at the half. That hits. So that has been the cadence of every Panthers road game. It just was in Tampa. Gosh, they had that thing left with that was no sweat at all when I took that over, the Tampa Panthers first half over. I think it's going to be the same here. First half over, Falcons, Panthers, Laz, what you got?
Okay, my one, I'm going to the biggest game of the week here. Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings for the number one seed. For the number one seed, catch it on ESPN. Okay. I'm looking at this one as to be settled by 1-6 either way. Either way. So we're going to have a tight finish here, and you look at the games that the Minnesota Vikings in particular played against. One against the Detroit Lions, 2 games against the Green Bay Packers, and then look at some recency against some other teams that are in that playoff kind of picture, someone like the Seahawks that was a narrow one as well. I think this one's going to be close. I think it's going to be fantastic football. And like I said, the stakes couldn't be higher. So what I've done is I've taken 1-6 being the margin of victory for the Lions, which is currently at $3.90, and for the Vikings, which is at $5. Say put half a unit on each. That means that should this game, as I believe it will be, settled by 1-6 either way, your payout, your odds will range between $1.95 and $2.50 as of the time right now, as of odds correct from 9 a.m. this morning on the 31st of the 12th, 2024. So that's what I like. A tight finish, a fantastic game, fantastic contest with narratives galore, 2 of the all-time redemptive quarterbacks of this generation. And I think we get an absolute nail-biter. follow that and enjoy each way. You're a winner if Minnesota wins. You're a winner if the Detroit Lions win, as long as it's just 1 to 6 points.
Laz, I'm gonna offer you an audible. All right.
Okay. Right.
I'm gonna offer you an audible. There is a tri-margin bet on tap right now. I just looked it up.
Oh, just lobbed.
7 points the game needs to be decided by either way. Pays $1.95. So you get the extra point.
Yep.
The nice round touchdown, and you get a tie in there because if they're late on, depending on the result coming up in minutes in San Francisco, if Detroit wins this, which they're favored to, then a tie against Minnesota would be enough to get Detroit the 1 seed. So if they're in overtime, Detroit can run out the clock. They effectively start overtime up a point. So
which would be very un-Dan Campbell to run out.
Yeah, he's not doing that. I'm just saying it's out there. But you get the extra point. You do sacrifice the $2.50 if Minnesota wins by 3. So you'd be sacrificing that, but $1.95, game to be decided by 7 points either way. Just saying, that's out there.
Stupid is as stupid does, Phil. I'm going to hold the line.
Okay, holding the line. Just offering it. And offering friends out there, just coming from somebody who's up 4.7 units on the year. I would go with I'd buy the extra point for the $1.95 either way, because this 31-24, you're done for. So anyway, my other one. Jets, Dolphins. Dolphins are in the playoffs, believe it or not, if they win and the Broncos lose. That's all they need to happen. Cincinnati's irrelevant to them. But the Dolphins, Tua still a hip issue. Mike McDaniel's a little bit coy with Tua's status, which is unbecoming of McDaniel.
And the starting quarterback against the Denver Broncos this week will be
Carson Wentz, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, the Broncos are 9-point favorites. That's being priced as if Mahomes ain't seen it. Or maybe it's like a preseason where Mahomes gets out there, throws the ball around a little bit.
Material
all right.
Carson Wentz. Wow.
I'll
fire him up.
But Laz, the market I like, Jets, Dolphins, first half unders. I gave all the reasons for the first half overs with the Panthers. Both of these teams in this scenario, games in New York. Jets home games, first half unders are 5-2. Dolphins road games, doesn't matter where it is, first half unders are 7-1. So you got two teams that trend very heavily to the under. Dolphins were in Cleveland last week. Total there first half was 20.5. They combined for 9. I mean, I was counting my chickens at the end of the first quarter. I knew they weren't touching 20. I think it's going to be the same here. I don't think it's going to be 6-3, but the total is 20.5. So 2 touchdowns is your limit. Okay, first half. But you got Aaron Rodgers, who's going to be force feeding the ball to Devontae Adams. The Jets ain't running the ball in the red zone. The Jets are not running the ball in the red zone. And the Dolphins, I don't think it's going to be Tua. I think it's going to be Tyler Huntley. That pays $1.85, under 20.5. Chalk it up.
Okay, I'm going statement time with my final one here. As you mentioned, some of the props, there'll be more coming out over the next couple of days, but what's available right now, I'm going to take a pick your own line with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think whether it is about the playoffs, whether it is about T. Higgins and keeping him, whether it is a message for just how damn good we can be when we're given a chance, and when you put me in control on the field, we're talking about here, with the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, I think Burrow makes a statement here. I think Burrow and the offense make a statement against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm picking my own line at -5.5. Me and those 6-point margins this week, Phil, huh? How about that? Can only bode well. But I'm taking the Bengals -5.5 up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers who are languishing and struggling and realizing they don't have the answers on offense that they thought they might have conjured together with a somewhat revived Russell Wilson and a defense that's had some rough moments of late, a defense that they hung their hat on. So I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to take Joe Burrow, making an absolute statement. Do I think T. Higgins is featured again heavily in this one? Yeah, I do. But I'm putting it on number 9, his friends around him. No, he's not going to be the MVP. It's a fun theoretical exercise about who truly is the most valuable if you want to extrapolate different definition meanings of the word value. I think we should just be enjoying that we've got 3 bona fide MVP caliber quarterback seasons and 1 bona fide running back MVP season in 2024. This isn't going to be one of those years where like, oh, I guess it's going to Aaron Rodgers this year. I guess it's going to Tom Brady this year. This is fought out till the end. And I think that for whatever lies ahead for the Cincinnati Bengals, whether those playoff hopes are dashed or not, I think a statement comes from Joe Burrow, and he closes this season with a true reminder of what could have happened, if the rest of our operation was a little more sound, given the level that me and my guys, particularly on offense, are delivering. It feels like week in, week out down the stretch.
Laws, it's strength against strength. I mean, under Mike Tomlin, it's the same rate, but you can even reduce it to the last 6 years, kind of that late Ben Roethlisberger era. The Steelers 35, 18, and 2 against the spread, basically a 2-to-1 proposition, 67% hit rate as underdogs under Mike Tomlin. But the Bengals this season 5-0 as road favorites against the number, which is weird because we think about them being such a failure. They've been a failure at home. I mean, you look at so many of their losses. The Patriots been week 1. If they're road favorites, they win and cover. This game's in Pittsburgh. I know because I just booked a flight there. I'll be on the sideline week 18, Sunday, midday on ESPN.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Well, Oz, we got to go. We got a kickoff, Niners-Lions. We've already ended the gambling segment, but rewind, and you'll remember what I told you to tip for this game. It's my picks. He's Laurie Horesh. I'm Phil Murphy. Laws, we're back. We're back next Wednesday, right? We are?
We are back regular time.
And at that point, the entire playoff bracket in the NFL will be set with the mighty, mighty Denver Broncos in the 7th seed in the AFC. Let's ride. Bye.